So you have property in North Carolina and out of North Carolina. So how do you protect both? Hi, I'm Brenton Begley, attorney and partner with McIntyre Elder Law. And I want to talk about protecting out of state property because it's incredibly important, but some hard type of subject to broach in North Carolina law, because if you're like me and you're only licensed in North Carolina, it's hard to say what protections are available in other states. However, there is one thing I can tell you, that if you utilize a trust, if you're a North Carolina resident and utilize a trust in North Carolina, that trust can protect assets. And that trust can also own assets that may be located in other jurisdictions. This is a question that a lot of people have when they do set up a trust and they do have out-of-state property or assets. They wonder, well, is this trust I'm setting up in North Carolina going to protect my property in Wyoming and California and Washington? And the answer is yes, as long as the property is actually placed in the trust. Now, the way that property works, at least in North Carolina, and I suspect that it works in all 50 states this way, is that each and every piece of property that can be privately owned has a deed, okay? And that deed can reflect the ownership of the either person or entity who has the ownership of the property, right? So that can be in an individual name, in a business name, and even in a trust name. So the way that that typically works is if we set up a trust for you and you have property in North Carolina, we deed that property into the North Carolina trust. If you have property outside the state of North Carolina, we have a deed drafted from an attorney in that state to the trust that we create for you. And you get the same benefits and protections that you would get from the trust with respect to that out-of-state property under North Carolina law. Now, if there's any other benefits and protections in those states, I can't speak to those, I can't tell you about those, but generally speaking, the best way to make sure that you can protect property is to utilize a trust. Now, another protection that you get through that process of putting an out-of-state property into a trust is you avoid probate in that jurisdiction and in North Carolina. A lot of people who pass away owning property in North Carolina and another jurisdiction have to, their heirs have to go and open up a probate estate in North Carolina and that other state just to pass title and interest to that property. You ultimately want to avoid that process because it can be long, it can be difficult, it can be expensive, especially if you have to open up two different probate processes in two different states. Additionally, it's a good idea to avoid probate, at least in North Carolina, because that's the only opportunity for a creditor to come after the estate, okay? So you should put a trust in place if you want to protect property that you have in North Carolina and property outside the state of North Carolina, generally speaking. If you have questions about how that works, or you want to dig in and figure out if a trust is right for you, if you have property out of state, you have property in the state of North Carolina, or just have any questions about what we do, which is estate planning and elder law, give us a call, 704-259-7040, or visit our website, mcelderlaw.com.